I didn't have a happy childhood. My parents divorced when I was 12 years old, and it all came as a huge shock to me. My father was very grumpy. I always tried to be good and obedient, but he still blamed me a lot. This psychological torture made me feel helpless and sad. My mom was a gentle housewife. I often saw my mom enduring my father's anger in silence. After the divorce, my mom and I moved to a small apartment, and our life became even more difficult. I often wept silently at night. I was also lonely at school. Due to the instability of my family, I became introverted and was not good at communicating with my classmates. As time went by, I gradually became stronger. I learned to accept myself. I realized that an unfortunate childhood would not determine my future and that I could choose my own path to become a better person. Unfortunately, when I was 24 years old, I developed pulmonary fibrosis. Due to the effects of pulmonary fibrosis, I often suffered from hypoxemia. One night, shortly after I fell asleep, I felt like I was suffocating. I felt like my nose was completely blocked and I couldn't get enough oxygen. I tried to open my mouth to get more air, but realized that I could not open my mouth freely either. I was in utter despair and felt that my breathing was stopping. In a matter of minutes, grayness enveloped my vision and the world around me gradually blurred. As my breathing stopped, my brain gradually lost energy and my thinking became slow. It was the most terrifying moment of my life, and that fear of death was unforgettable. After a while, my mind became clear, and all my previous fears disappeared. Above my head, a tunnel appeared. I didn't know what was happening. I was caught up in this mysterious tunnel. The walls of the tunnel were gray. The tunnel shimmered with golden light, like fireflies in the night. The sight mesmerized me and made me feel a peace I had never felt before. I felt the joy within me, as if I was moving in the right direction. I realized that my body had now lost its meaning to me. It was just an empty shell without a soul. It was only when I got rid of this body that I would be truly free. At the end of the tunnel, there was a bright light which seemed to beckon me forward, drawing me forward. In the tunnel, I was open to it all because I believed this was my moment to come home. I no longer felt alone, but filled with the desire to go home. Though I had stopped breathing, a marvelous strength filled me. I knew this was not the end, but the beginning of a new life. I thought I could go straight into that light, but before I did, I was stopped by a transparent wall. The wall seemed to be an invisible barrier that prevented me from moving on. I touched the transparent wall in front of me and it confused and frustrated me. Around the tunnel, I also saw many souls. They had no clear destination, just like robots. Looking at these mindless souls, I felt an inexplicable sadness, as if my mind resonated with them. They had no emotions or consciousness, as if they were living in a kind of illusory dream. Then I noticed a blurry figure to my left. I couldn't make out his face, but I could see that he was wearing a denim jacket and a cowboy hat. This mysterious person told me that I shouldn't talk to those spirits because they weren't going to pay any attention to me. They had lost their sense of self and were just moving around mechanically in this unreal world. I didn't understand why I was in this tunnel and why I couldn't reach the place of light at the other end. My heart was filled with doubts and I didn't know what would happen next. I began to feel at a loss in this unfamiliar situation, hoping to find answers. It was at this time that I heard a man's voice. He told me not to try to cross the wall in front of me because my mission was not yet complete. This voice was filled with love and concern. This intense love was like nothing I had ever experienced before, and it warmed my heart. Looking back on my upbringing, I suffered abuse from my father as a child. My father often called me a useless piece of trash. And the physical abuse caused me unbearable pain. I longed to be his proud child, but that was not the case, and he was not happy with me. This love came so suddenly that it shocked and delighted me. The mysterious man who was not my father conveyed strong emotions to me. He was willing to share this pain for me. In this moment, it was as if I felt understood and accepted. This man's voice taught me to face my past hurts and let go of the resentments in my heart. This call of love made me feel recognized and no longer a waste to be denied. The man continued to tell me that you can hang in there and everything will be okay. His words warmed my broken heart. Whenever I recall this scene, tears flow uncontrollably. It was as if his words had a magical power that made me feel strong and courageous inside. I was no longer afraid because I had him by my side. Then he told me it was time to go back. I resisted very much. I didn't want to leave him. I wanted to stay here forever and enjoy the love and care. But he gave me a reason why I had to go back, and I can't remember the specifics of that conversation. I began to realize that I couldn't stay here forever. I had unfinished business and a reality to face. I felt myself being pulled back into my body. It was a wonderful feeling, like my soul was slowly returning to its vessel. The next morning, I woke up to find myself in a hospital bed. I looked out the window and was surprised to see Jesus. He was watching me with a smile on his face, and I was filled with gratitude and amazement. He was dressed in a white robe that radiated a divine light. His hair was brown, and his eyes were full of wisdom, as if they could see into every thought of my heart. His smile was full of love and forgiveness, giving me a feeling of endless warmth. There was a strong lion by his side. This lion exuded majesty. Its fur was golden yellow, and each mane glowed brightly. Its eyes were very bright, like two shining stars. There seemed to be a special bond between the lion and Jesus. And it looked at him with a look of loyalty. Jesus and the lion looked at me together. It was as if I understood that this lion symbolized courage and strength, and that it was the guardian that Jesus had given me. The presence of Jesus and this lion made me realize that I was not alone, I had them with me. "Thank you all," I whispered. Jesus smiled and nodded. Jesus hugged me gently. His palms patted my back as if to soothe my heart. "Don't be afraid," he said gently. "You will never be alone. I will always be with you." The lion whispered and hissed back at me, as if to assure me that I would have his watchful eye. At this time, my mother walked into the hospital room. Immediately, I asked the mother next to me, "Do you see Jesus outside the window?" However, she did not see anything and thought I was hallucinating. My mother reminded me to get some rest. But I believed that the Jesus outside the window was real. After this experience, I began to pray to God frequently. I hoped that He would help me forget this paradoxical experience so that I could return to my normal life. This memory made my desire to go home even stronger. The warmth of that place was too tempting for me, making me long to return there and seek inner peace. In the months that passed, I began to become more and more negative. This put me in deep pain. Depression gripped my mind and I prayed every day for God to take me home, but received no response. I felt isolated and abandoned. Although I realized that I could not see God by committing suicide, I was still in extreme pain. I gradually realized that there was no avoiding the difficulties in life, and that I had to find ways to cope with them. Thus, I began to constantly adjust my mindset and learn to accept my inner pain. In the next 2 years, I kept learning and trying to find ways to redeem myself. I made life rich and kept exploring new possibilities. Most importantly, I gradually realized the joy of helping others. I realized that God might have given me a mission to help people release their fear of death, so that they would understand that death is just a gateway to a better life and does not need to be feared. So I began to help those who felt lost and afraid. I bravely shared my experiences with them, hoping to give them some insight and help through my story. I told them that death is not scary, it is the beginning of another unknown world. I hope to give them courage and strength with my experience. In the process, I gradually found my self-worth. Helping others gives me a sense of inner peace and fulfillment. I know I am not alone. I want to keep going and use my experience to influence more people to feel the beauty of life. Until I was 37 years old, I was skeptical of religion, believing it to be nothing more than a lie made up by some people. I felt that heaven and hell were made up. I felt they were all crazy and prided myself on my sanity. Some people are so afraid of death that they fantasize about entering heaven after death, which seems to be a way of seeking spiritual comfort. Once, when I was talking to a friend about religious beliefs, we had a conflict. During this conversation, I frankly expressed my views. My friend was a devout believer. He had a positive view of religion and he believed that it gave him guidance and meaning in his life. In my expression, I may not have fully respected his beliefs. This made him feel challenged and offended. As the conversation progressed, our emotions became agitated and we began to fall into an argument. This led to a deepening conflict between us. When I was 37 years old, I experienced something that completely changed my view of religion. My father, who died at the age of 68, was a very good father and a competent husband. Like me, he was skeptical of religion. During the time my father was suffering from stomach cancer, our family faced great psychological stress. He went through the pain of the disease, but he always tried to stay optimistic and strong. I admired his attitude towards the disease. He did not bow to the pain, but faced each day with perseverance. In those days before he passed away, I had many precious exchanges with my father. He told me to cherish every moment of my life and not to worry about the regrets of the past or the uncertainties of the future. In my last moments, I sat by his bedside and held his hand. I can't put into words the sadness and dismay I felt at that moment. One afternoon, 3 months after my father's death, I was resting in bed at the time. I had just fallen into a deep sleep when, suddenly, I felt that I had appeared in another mysterious place. Smoke filled the surroundings, making it impossible for me to see anything. This place seemed to be completely different from the real world, and I didn't know where I was and couldn't discern the direction. My mood began to become tense. After a while, the smoke gradually began to dissipate. In the process of the fog dissipating, I saw a young man walk out of the mist. I felt some uneasiness in my heart about his appearance. I wasn't sure if he was a good guy or a bad guy. When I saw the young man's face, my mouth opened wide in surprise because that person turned out to be my father. I couldn't believe what was happening in front of me. He wasn't a ghostly apparition, but a complete body. I didn't know what was going on, but I was sure it was my father. I was even more certain of his identity when I noticed his hands. There were obvious scars on his hands because of the previous surgery he had undergone. He stood there quietly, not speaking, just watching me. My father looked very healthy now, completely different from the state he was in before he passed away. Before he passed away, his hair had all turned gray and he wasn't very mobile. Due to the effects of cancer, he looked more like an 80-year-old man. However, now he looks like a 30-year-old young man. My father was wearing a white shirt and gray pants. In this marvelous environment, we do not need to speak. Communication took place in a way that transcended words, simply and directly. I felt a spiritual connection between us and was able to understand each other accurately. This way of communication made me feel very close. I couldn't help but ask my father curiously, "What does it feel like to die?" He answered with a whole lot of words that I could hardly understand. What I understood was that death is not the end, but a new beginning. Death is the liberation and transcendence of the soul. I began to have a deeper understanding of life and death. Curious, I asked my father what this place was. My father explained that this was a transition area. A special space connecting different worlds. He told me that after he left the real world, his soul came to this special transition area. This place did not belong to any particular world, but was a realm between life and death. Here, time and space are not restricted. This explanation shocked me. I had never heard of such a transitional area. When my father told me to look to my left, all the mist had dissipated. A beautiful village unfolded before my eyes, like a fairyland. This village was surrounded by flowers of all colors and fruit trees filled with all kinds of ripe fruits. The houses were situated between the valleys. The houses looked simple and warm. The whole village exuded a peaceful atmosphere that made me feel very relaxed. I noticed that there was also a huge waterfall on the hill. I saw a man approaching us. He had brown hair and was wearing a white robe. He was floating in mid-air and moving very fast. As he approached, I felt a warm energy. He embraced me. At that moment, I was surrounded by intense love, a love so powerful that it was almost too much for me to bear. I felt like a balloon on the verge of blowing up, filled with joy and shock. I felt profoundly that this was real and not a dream. His embrace made me feel warm and caring in a way I had never felt before. No words could describe this feeling. I gradually calmed my inner excitement and tried to stabilize myself. I wanted to connect with this man. Wanted to learn more about the mysteries of life. He communicated with me through telepathy. He showed me a series of images that demonstrated the diversity of life and the vastness of the universe. I felt as if I had traveled through time and space, witnessing the trajectory of countless lives. One image in particular caught my attention, that of God's care for mankind. I saw countless scenes in which God reached out and lightly touched human life with his finger. In these scenes, some people were laughing and others were grieving. God cast a concerned eye in every scene. I saw that in those difficult moments, God always seemed to be quietly watching. Whether struggling through pain or feeling happiness in moments of joy, God never seems to leave the side of mankind. Many people don't realize that God is around, but he is certainly present in everyone's life journey. In addition to his concern for humans, I saw God's care for animals. In another image, I saw a vision of animals living in heaven. They were running in the wide meadow. Such scenes made me realize that heaven is not only a home for human beings, but also a haven for all life, and that God has selfless care for all living beings. In this exchange, I realized God's wisdom. I felt that God's love is everywhere, both in human life and in the world of animals. His love is selfless. The man finally said to me, "Now you must go back." I realized that I needed to return to the real world to continue my journey through life. I said goodbye to him and my father. Under their watchful eyes, I felt endless love and care, a feeling that filled me with courage and strength. I told them that I would always treasure this precious experience and thank them for giving me confidence and inspiration. At the moment of farewell, I felt a flow of emotions that transcended words. Our souls mingled with each other and we conveyed our blessings to each other with our hearts. Slowly, I left that place and returned to the real world. I am grateful to God for giving me such an amazing experience. 3 days later, my sister came to my house. I told her I had a dream about my father. Before I could finish, my sister interrupted me with a surprised expression and said that she also had a dream about her father. I couldn't help but ask my sister, what kind of clothes was my father wearing? My sister replied that he wore a loose white shirt with a pair of vintage gray pants. Father was in a very energetic state, just like when he was young. When I heard my sister's answer, I dropped tears of excitement. Because the dream she described was almost exactly the same as the one I had. The only difference was that I had the dream a day earlier than she did. I was incredulous. Such a coincidence was simply unbelievable. Although there is no way to explain the truth of it all, we are both convinced that it is not a coincidence. This experience reinforces our belief that there may be endless mysteries in life. We may have a special bond with our Father's soul that transcends the limits of time and space. This marvelous experience made me begin to question my previous perceptions. It is so real. I believe time will give me the answer. My mother has been very sad since my father's death. I wasn't sure if I should tell her about my experience. I realized that the topic might touch her inner grief. After I gave it some serious thought, I decided to tell my mother about it. At first, she did not believe my experience. I firmly told my mother that I also saw the cat that I used to have. That cat was a gift from my mother on my 8th birthday. I loved it very much and we had a deep bond. While in heaven, I saw that cat living a very happy life. If someone asks me, do animals go to heaven when they die? I would have to answer honestly, yes. I firmly believe that heaven is not just a place for humans, but a home for all animals. But as I described more details about my father, she became surprised and shocked. My mother shed tears as her emotions became complex and emotional. This is my story. After this experience, I had a completely different view of religion. For me, heaven is no longer a fictional fantasy, but a real and beautiful existence. It is our eternal home, the place where our souls belong. In the face of many people's skepticism, I didn't care. This particular experience may be difficult for others to understand and accept. But I believe that God is all around us and that He loves each and every one of us unconditionally, including all the animals. My father is not gone forever, but has a special connection in some way. I believe I will be reunited with him again in the near future and it will be an eternal reunion. I hope to use my story to convey a sense of hope and belief that heaven is real. No matter what changes life goes through.